think you know what might be going down today. Big stack of books. I feel like I often have a disclaimer for these videos, but this one even more so maybe than others. I'm not an avid reader. I wish I was. I think maybe what's ironic about that is, you'd think, oh, I love writing music and I love poetry and I like the way poetry sounds, but I actually don't spend a lot of time learning about writing. And I think I associate reading and writing with high school and something that was kind of forced. There are a few books in high school that I loved and actually enjoyed reading. So today might be a shorter episode than others. I want to talk about some of my favorite books. And don't get me wrong, these are books that I've gathered over a 22, almost 23-year period. So I don't just read super often, but I'm getting into it again, which is kind of why I'm making this video, because I found some poetry recently that I'm really excited about. In last week's episode, we talked with Leanne Tarrab a little bit about technology, our gripes with technology, kind of where social media is going and how that's shaped people, which sounds a lot deeper than it was, but it was a fun conversation between two best friends talking about their issues with technology. My video for The Highway was just released, and I'll link that down below. You can still tune into that on YouTube. Let's get into it. There's no rhyme or reason for the order that I decided to do this, and I did recently purchase a Kindle within the last year, so some of the books that I'm going to talk about are electronic, so I'll be sure to put up pictures on the screen so we all know what I'm talking about. I want to start with a book that changed my life when I was 14. I got my best friend into it at the time, and we actually met the author because I was so keen on this book that I saw she was doing a signing and like a Q&A about the book. And so I went to it here somewhere in LA, and that was life-changing. I want to say this book is signed. I'm not sure. The book is signed. It's All the Bright Places by Jennifer Niven. She wrote, "Natalie, thank you for being one of my bright places, double underlined. Jennifer Niven." I can't say I loved the film adaptation of it, but the book itself is so phenomenal. And as a young teen, it was transformative. I think it's one of the best fiction books out there. It's one of the sadder ones, but made me believe in love. And it was the first time I feel like I fell in love with characters that didn't exist, and to the level of writing where you thought these characters existed in real life. And I thought maybe I was a little delusional. Yeah, I wrote many songs about this book, not released because concerned about copyright, but a very inspiring book. Such a journey to watch Finch and Violet fall in love with each other, and kind of why they do and how they meet is really interesting. So this was definitely a young adult, early teen book, but I think it's super accessible if you're older, and I loved this book. It's also really sad, and I love a book that makes you cry because I think it's hard to do that. It's one of the best fiction books. This next book is heavily talked about, maybe in the self-help personal growth category, which I don't like to be super preachy about because you should just read these books to feel better. But this was one of the few personal growth self-help books that I actually thought wasn't super preachy, and it actually kind of reframed a lot of the way I think about life and the timeline of what time is, which sounds super deep, but it's explained in this book, and that's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This really changed the way I viewed life. Again, that's like a very powerful statement to make. It changed my life. It did, a little bit. It's a journey that kind of talks about the self, the ego, what the purpose of your subconscious is, the ways we think about life, so future-oriented. Kind of pretty much says, time's not really real. There's the past, there's the things you look for in the future, but the only thing that is certain and that you have right now is now. Reading the whole book, I actually took one section that kind of sums up the book for me, I think. There's a qualitatively different kind of waiting, one that requires your total alertness. Something could happen at any moment, and if you're not absolutely awake, absolutely still, you'll miss it. I think in college and going into college, I had a hard time being present because so much of being a young adult and getting into college and, being a post-grad and becoming an adult is looking to the future and worrying about what's coming in the future and who you were before and how much you resent the person that you used to be and who you want to be. And I think we don't often think about who you are now. It's sort of an interesting book to wrestle with because the part of life where you're wired to look forward of who you want to be is super important. And this book kind of touches about how that sometimes can be a good thing, or there's a way where that is a good thing. Thinking of it in terms of time is not super positive. I don't know if that makes sense, but all you have is right now. You are all that you've ever been right now. It was a good read for me. If you're into the self-help category in any means, this is a good one to start with. It's also not too long, and I read it in a coffee shop down in Boston over a couple days during spring break, and that was lovely. Let's change gears. Lullabies by Leav. I apologize if that's, again, not the correct pronunciation. This was a collection of poetry that I read in early high school, so a lot of it has kind of fallen to the wayside, but I remember being really excited about poetry in here, and there was one poem specifically that I wanted to talk about. And what's actually interesting is on the back side, there's a poem called Time. You were the one I wanted to stay, but time could not be kept at bay. The more it goes, the more it's gone, the more it takes away. So kind of interesting with the last book about time. Anyway, when I started writing music as a really young preteen, I thought poetry was kind of the way to go into that. And I don't think all poetry is geared to be taken as songwriting, but a lot of the poetry that I like and still read kind of reads as lyrics. And if you wanted to make a song out of it, there's portions that rhyme. And I really appreciated this book, and it gave a lot of good inspiration for songwriting and kind of topics to talk about. That's another thing with poetry, is when I'm stuck on a topic or I don't really know what I want to say or what I even want to write a song about, it can spark a lot of interest, different, facets of love and life that you can comment on that are maybe more specific than just the general topic on its own. One that I vividly recall writing a song about and kind of, having no idea about love really at all, but this kind of just sparked something. It's a poem called You. There are people I will never know, and their lives will still ensue. Those that could have loved me so, and I'll never wonder who. Of all the things to come and go, there is no one else like you. The things I never think about, and the only thing I do. If you write music, I think poetry is a fantastic way to get ideas and kind of be taken out of the melodic part of it, because so much of good songwriting, I believe, is the story you're trying to paint. And sometimes when you pair that with an instrument, it kind of gets lost in translation. Lullabies by Leav. We're going to switch gears again. My favorite book of all time kind of found me on a whim. I was at Barnes & Noble. I'm very into psychological thrillers. It's hard to explain. I think they're interesting, and I like plot twists, and I like when storylines just change dramatically. And I came across a book just because I liked the cover called I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid. That book was so phenomenal. I loved the writing. The writing was very ominous. The ending is extremely ominous. Again, I didn't love the adaptation on Netflix, but I thought the book itself is amazing. So when people trash on that, I kind of just say you have to read the book. When I pitch this book to people who haven't seen the adaptation either, I just say it's about a guy and his accompanied girlfriend, and they're on a drive to go meet his parents, and she's pretty much having second thoughts about the relationship. She's thinking of ending things, and that's all you need to know. There's one book you'll read from this video. For anybody who sees this video, make it that book. It's a short read. It's amazing. If you like psychological thrillers, you'll be spooked by this book. I think it's very creative. I've got two more books to talk about, and they're both actually very current. One is called Cowboy Poetry. It's coffee table tidbits. It's 50 poems by Lott. I'm only about halfway through the poems, but I love them. They're very Western, Americana, country, cowboy kind of related. I think they're witty and they're kind of funny. Some of them are. I like that some of them are kind of based on real stories. Maybe it's not the way it's intended to be taken, but there's always kind of a undertone about life under each one, and about love or connection and emotions. And I think it's really creative, and kind of like I said about the other one, it reads sort of like songwriting, and then I really appreciate the rhyming in between them. And they have really, cute titles, just The Old Barn, The Old Cowboy, It's Bluegrass Over There, Sergeant Smith, The Note, The Mushroom, The Guitar Lesson. Yeah, I kind of don't know how I stumbled on this. I think I just kind of Googled best modern poetry, and they're fun. They're fun to read. One specifically that I loved is Time to Forget. It reads just like a song. Sometimes I smoke a little, sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes I even forget to pour the next shot. You're forever on my mind, but how long can it last? If the bag and the bottle hold out, I'll pull you in the past. There's too many dark clouds covering blue sky, too many reasons to smoke, drink, and get high. I thought you were the one, and I was your man, but I learned the hard way you had other plans. So it's kind of like, a lot of these read like sad cowboy country songs, and I love it. Something about it is just funny and endearing at the same time, and the ending is amazing. Well, the sun's rising. Looks like I've sat here all night, but I managed to close memory lane real tight. Well, the bag's empty and the bottle's corked up tight, but I got a feeling I'll find some more tonight. Because sometimes I drink a little, and sometimes it's a lot, and sometimes I smoke a little between shots. Amazing. So that's been a really fun one. And the last book I wanted to talk about was recommended by a special individual in my life named Caleb. He kind of told me about the band Wilco and kind of the lead, Jeff Tweedy. And he's got a book called How to Write One Song. And so I bought it because Lord knows I want to know how to write one song. Loving the things we create and how they love us back. I'm loving this book. I'm still not done with it, but I love his views about songwriting and how it's kind of about writing one song and not about writing songs plural. Something he wrote in there that sticks out to me for some reason is sometimes it's like, oh, you're a songwriter? Like, yeah, I'm a songwriter, but you write a song and all I can ever think is, how do I do that again? Like, you get into a space to do that, or you go through something that gives you enough emotional ideas to talk about it in a song, and then I wonder how I'm going to do it again. And he totally articulated that in one chapter, and I thought it was funny. And a lot of it is witty and it's hilarious, and I like the way it's written. And again, it's a short read, so I'm sure I'll be done with it soon. I'm slowly getting introduced into Wilco. I'm kind of just going album to album when I drive, and I've been listening to Jeff Tweedy for the last year, and that was also a more recent one in my life. He's got a song called Laminated Cat that is so phenomenal. Definitely maybe a much shorter video than what we're used to. I'm not a totally avid reader, but it's still a video that I thought I'd have fun making, talking about some books for all the way from when I was 13 to present day. I think if I had to recommend 2 out of this, it would be I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain, Reid, and Cowboy Poetry, if that's in your wheelhouse and you kind of enjoy country themes. You can tune into last week's video about Leanne and I talking about technology, and we'll see what we do next week. Today we got to talk a little bit about books and music, so it was Harmonies and Hindsights. You can stream The Highway now on Spotify and Apple Music and anywhere you choose to stream your music. Get on reading. Goodbye. Sayonara.